welcome to another episode of Healthy Talks. I am your host, Julie, and today we are with the lovely Victoria, who is a dance movement psychotherapist. Hi, Victoria, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm well, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Well,
Um, yeah.
thank you for giving us the time. We're really excited to dive into dance movement psychotherapy and just to see the ins and outs of it. So, forward starting, like your dance journey into dance movement therapy is quite unique. Can you share what inspired you to combine dance with psychotherapy?
Absolutely. So I was a dancer my whole way through school, and I think dance was always a therapy for me. I just didn't realize, it was a space where I would come to the dance floor and the outside world would just become quiet and I could be with myself and my thoughts. I was a contemporary dancer, which is a very emotive kind of
Mm,
form of dance. The music really spoke to my soul. There was lots of storytelling. So it really was something quite deep for me from a very early age. And then I ended up doing dance as a subject at school. And one of my projects was around what the different dance careers were, and I found out about dance psychotherapy. And from that moment, I was like, "This is my calling. This is what I have to do." And I set my goals, and I managed to get there. So yeah, I ended up doing my undergrad and postgraduate studies in psychology in South Africa, and then went
mm.
on to do my master's degree in movement psychotherapy in the UK, and now I've been practicing for 4 years.
That's amazing that you turn something that you love and that you're passionate about into a career, which we're all aspire to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a blessing. I love what I do. It's not even work.
That's amazing. And tell me, dance movement therapy emphasizes the mind-body connection. Can you explain how this connection benefits individuals in their healing process?
Yeah, I mean, we are on the side of the fence, the psychological fence, where we debunk dualism, which really, that was what psychology believed for centuries, was that the
Mm,
body and the mind were two separate entities. So we are on the side of the fence with Carl Jung and Gestalt and Edmund Husserl, all those kind of psychologists who incorporated the body, mind, and then also the soul into 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 psychology. So we believe that there is a constant communication between the body, mind, and soul. Neuroscience is on our side as well, which
hmm.
really talks to the dance that happens between our neural pathways and our nervous system and our cellular memory, that they are interconnected at all times. And
Yes,
actually, when there is a disconnect, or what we would call a body mind split, that's where the pathology lies. That's where mental health or mental health issues lies, and that's where the healing happens. So it's the reintegrating or the realigning of the body, mind, and soul, is what the main goal of our therapy is.
that's amazing. And you mentioned that you have a diverse background in various dance forms, such as contemporary. How do you integrate the different dance styles into your therapy sessions?
So this is a really interesting question, and I'm so happy that you're bringing it up. It talks to a big misconception that movement therapy has, and it's actually one of the reasons why I've dropped the word dance from my title. I actually call
Okay.
myself a movement therapist now, because as soon as people hear the word dance, they think, oh, they're going to come to a session, they're going to practice for a performance, I'm going to look at their posture, I'm going to teach them routines. And it so really couldn't be further from the truth. So, what we actually focus in on is embodiment and what happens in the body.
Mm,
Um, so how I like to explain to people is I focus in on the rhythm or the dance of life, not necessarily dance itself. So if
yes.
you are a dancer, you will be more open to the practice, and maybe you will want to get on the dance floor and express yourself. But that's not necessarily what happens in a movement therapy session. Um, yeah, we just really use if you think about your own life for a second and you think about your own rhythm, and maybe compare it to your partner's. Just think about how you wake up in the morning. Do you wake up and have a coffee in
Mm.
bed? Do you go for a run? Do you start, how does your rhythm look when you're at work versus when you're stressed versus when you're on holiday? And though that's kind of the dance that we look at, not necessarily,
Okay.
I'm going to teach you how to do a plie and that's going to help your nervous system, you know? Um, so yeah, I'm happy you asked that question. Often we have sessions where we don't dance at all. When the way you walk into my studio or the
Mm.
way you sit down on my couch tells me all that I need to know already because it's all in your body.
Yes, of course, it's your body language. It's very important to see.
Exactly.
And what does a session then entail or look like in your therapy?
So I've never had two sessions that look the same. They are really, really, really awesome and exciting in that way. You know, some clients will come in and they will want to talk it out before we move into any kind of creative intervention, where others will come in and they're like, I just want to draw a picture and then we can discuss it later, or they just want to lie down on the couch and meditate. So
Hmm.
it really depends on what the presenting problem is and what's coming up for the client. We work in the here and now, so it's very much about what is happening right now.
Yes.
um and the neuroscience behind it is because it's an embodied practice, we really trust on my nervous system in relationship to your nervous system and
Hmm.
what and how it responds. So lots of kind of non-verbal attunement. We focus in. Our primary focus is the non-verbal space. So lots of creative stuff. I mean, my studio, we've got a dance floor, we've got toys, we've got art supplies, we've got music, we've got musical instruments. So it's really about what you are called to do
Hmm.
and using the creative space to as the first point of call. And then another misconception that often comes up is, can we come if we can speak? Or can we speak in your sessions? Absolutely. It's just another layer. It's a layer
Hmm.
of meaning making. It's not the only or the primary focus. We would start with something creative and then add the layers of meaning with language.
That's
Is that making sense?
very interesting. It makes complete sense.
Okay, good.
And on your website, DanceFix, you mentioned that you work with children, adolescents. How does movement therapy differ from working with children or younger clients to adults?
So it's not actually that different. But there are a few distinctive moments. I mean, kids come in with a lot more openness to creative
Mm.
expression. Adults have a lifetime of social constraints and social political layers that kind of need to be detangled before you land in that play space. So they prefer a more directive approach. Let's do this and this and this, and this is why I'm doing this. They like a bit
Mm.
more kind of structure to the therapy, whereas the kids really just find it quite a safe, fun place to express themselves and really play with a purpose. So it speaks a lot to what the human kind of race really needs. I think there's something to be said around the innocence and the naivety that our
Mm.
children have that us as adults really we need to break free from all of this stuff that happens to us and all these layers in order to get in touch with that playful
Mm.
child because I think it will shorten the therapy. And I think that you will, have access already, let your subconscious come through a lot easier if you just tap into that kind of freedom that the kids have.
No, definitely. Like you said, like we have all these layers when we were a child. We had this innocent and playfulness, but as we get older, we kind of restrict ourselves. So it's your job essentially to break all those layers down so we can connect with it again.
Exactly.
Can you share a success story where movement therapy significantly impacted a client's mental health and well-being?
Yeah. It's such a loaded question. And I thought I'd actually share quite a special moment in a group therapy session that will also help you kind of have a sneak peek into what a group session would look like, and also just get the answer to the
Mm,
question. So I've worked in a residential home for adults with both intellectual and physical disability for the last 4 to 5 years now, and I had quite a well-established group. And they were mostly high-functioning individuals, and they were quite able-bodied. And during this time, we had an OT, a bunch of OT students that were
mm,
doing their community service. And there was this wonderful Muslim student who was just throwing himself into everything. He wanted to come to every group and he just wanted to experience everything. And he was just so wonderful. And he asked to come to a movement therapy group. So I invited him to join this well-established group with us. So the group, and if you wanted to look more into like the movement therapy kind of psychology, there's a wonderful pioneer. Her name was Marion Chase, and she did a lot of kind of research and things
mm.
around group work. And so the idea with the group work and in a creative session is that you will use lots of symbolism, you'll use lots of metaphor, you use lots of props. You use things where there'll be a central focus point,
Yes.
and each member of the group will take their own experience, their own meaning from that centralized point, and make it their own. Take from it what they want or what they can in that safe space of community and being witnessed. I hope I'm still making sense. Just
Yes.
stop if you have questions. Okay. So anyway, so I for this session I had a box full of flags. And so that was the central focus point. And so, as the warm up, um, I took out a flag and I said, okay, well, let's all embody a flag as our warm up. So it was quite fun. It was really
Mm.
funny. It was humorous. There was like residents flopping around the room looking like a flag, and we making funny noises with our mouths, and really just looking quite ridiculous, which made it the group come together.
Mm.
And then one of the residents went up and pulled out another flag, and it was the South African flag. And all of a sudden, the group singing the national anthem, and there's memories being shared about the Bokke and how we won, and then, braaiing and how much the residents love
Yes.
their meat. And so, really, quite a special moment of connection again. And then one of the residents came up and took another flag, and it was the Israeli flag. And so this resident says, "Oh, I need a hug from Hashem. With everything that's going on in Israel, I just need a hug from Hashem." And he wrapped himself in this flag and literally received a hug from Hashem in an embodied
Wow.
way. And the next resident came up and said, "I want a hug from Hashem too," and did the same thing, wrapped himself in this flag and really felt the presence of Hashem. And so this Muslim student who was so eager came up and said, "I want to give it a try." And he wraps himself in this flag and has a completely different experience. He freezes, his body freezes, his breath stops, his eyes start dotting around the room. And what was really special in this moment is that the group, I didn't need to intervene as the therapist because the
Yes.
group was so established. They started practicing things that we've already practiced. They started practicing mindfulness. They reminded him to breathe. They reminded him where he was. They slowly unwrapped him as a group, and he managed to come back to his breath, and so on and so forth, and the group, kind of unfolded in that way. And in checkout, the student said he has never felt so connected to a group of individuals that were so different to him.
Mm.
Different religion, different ability, different age, different. I mean, you could not be more different. And he was an outsider in the group, and he came into the space, and as I said, that one prop that was a central point was able to give each and every person in that group their own experience of therapy.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's beautiful, actually.
Yeah, so I thought that was a good one to share and really showcase what a session would look like and how different people would just take from it their own
Yes,
experience.
definitely. No,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Just showing the unity of what all those tools that you are giving them to help them through it, like just brings them together at the end of the day. And it's
Yeah.
essentially what we all should do in our everyday life.
Yeah. And then we would have world peace.
Yes, definitely.
Enjoying this episode? Ever thought of starting your own podcast? Podup.com is your go-to. They've got everything you need to run a pro show, including 35 or more AI-powered tools for success. Sign up today for a free starter account and get 15% off with the code HealthETalks15. The code is HealthETalks15. Plus, check out podallies.com for a done-for-you podcasting experience, complete with website, social media, and editing. Start now and let's launch your podcast together.
On your Psychology Today profile, you mention incorporating mindfulness into your sessions. You've just mentioned the mindfulness now, but how does mindfulness practices complement the movement therapy as a whole?
So, mindfulness actually carries a lot of similar principles to that of traditional therapy. It's a safe, non-judgmental space. It's a place where you give your nervous system time to recover and recuperate. You practice emotional regulation. These are all, key features to my
Mm.
therapy. And of course, well, I'm also a mindfulness, like, I just love mindfulness. I'm one of the biggest kind of advocates for mindfulness, and so I bring it into my sessions wherever possible. I mean, often I have either a moment of intention setting or a moment of meditation, which really allows the client to go into their body and let their creative kind of imagination land itself in their
Mm.
body. And so, yeah, there's lots of overlapping, especially in my approach to
Yes.
therapy.
No, I
Mm.
can imagine. Something really interesting that you mentioned to me was that you're currently in your yes man era, participating in talks, podcasts like these, doing articles. Can you tell us more about these experiences and where interested individuals can find information about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm in my well, I'm now in my third trimester, but when I got to my second trimester of carrying my second child, I had the most insane energy spurt. And I've started this yes man era, and I was just advocating for movement therapy and the arts therapies in any way I could, and saying yes to all the podcasts and whatever.
Mm.
So there's lots of information. I did another podcast with a mental health podcast called The Wild Hearted.
Mm.
The episode was called Movement Therapy, so that's still live and active. I've done talks with Cape Town psychologists at the Meet and Greet conference. I did a very daunting talk at SACAP, which is South African College of Applied Psychology, which is actually where I did my honors. So stepping
Yes.
back into that space as a professional was, oh, it was so
Nerve-wracking.
scary. It was something. But yeah, all access to all of those recordings and podcasts you can find on my website or my social media. So maybe just to find me,
Yes.
www.dancefix.me, or on Instagram, I'm dancefix_CT for Cape Town.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, you can just find me from there, and you'll be able to find the links.
I will definitely put all the links with this episode. But it's just amazing to be in a yes and saying yes to everything. Like it's actually so scary, but just looking at what you've accomplished so far, it shows you that it does work and it does bring a sort of new sense to meaning of life.
Absolutely. It's been the most rewarding thing. I mean, my practice has filled up beautifully. Like, I've met so many amazing people. It's really been, I'm going to suggest to many clients to actually explore it. It's a great concept.
Definitely is. And what advice would you give to someone who wants to go into dance movement therapy
So, is this as a career or as therapy?
as a career and then as therapy for themselves?
So, as a career, I would say absolutely go for it. Any of the art therapies is really the way of the future. I mean, overseas and abroad, it's already flourishing. It's still kind of being established in South Africa, but
Mm.
because we have such a diverse culture and we have so many incredible, cultures and just diversity here. Stepping away from traditional therapy is the only way I see the future of this country. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say go for it, but it's not easy. I find
Mm.
I do have to advocate and explain what I do, more than that of a psychologist.
Yes.
Everyone knows what a psychologist is. No one knows what an arts therapist is. Um, and then for therapy, oh my gosh, absolutely. You need to give it a try. You need to come with an open mind. And it's a lot less scary than you think. A lot of people are hesitant and not, like we mentioned before, it's not like easy for them to just step into their child or their innocence or drop all those societal kind of layers that have been built over time.
Mm.
But you actually experience a real sense of freedom in an art therapy session. And another thing I can say is that if traditional therapy or talking therapy has not been impactful for you, you
Yes.
really need to try this because it is so different and it comes from a different angle. It comes from a less intrusive kind of inviting angle. So
Mm.
why not give it a try?
Definitely. Like if what there's nothing to lose but if you don't try. And if you try, then you know it doesn't work or it does work. But it probably will work for you if you don't do talk therapy so well.
Exactly.
And looking
Exactly.
forward, for our last question for you today, how do you see the field of dance movement therapy evolving, and what are your hopes for its future integration into mainstream mental health care?
So if we talk about South Africa in particular, like I said, it's still being established in a very big way. Um, there's lots of red tape that we're currently navigating, but outside of South Africa, the field is blossoming, and I really hope that we're slowly following suit. With South Africa, everything's a little bit slower than the rest of the world,
Yeah.
probably because we're so far away from the rest of the world. But yeah, so in South Africa, just to name some of the red tape that we have to go through, the there are so dance movement therapy is one of the art therapies. There are 5 art therapies.
Okay.
It's movement, dance, art, play, drama, and music. So play therapy and art therapy are probably like the most well known. Um, all of the other four, except movement therapy, are currently offered in universities here for studying. There is one or two short courses of movement therapy slowly trickling in. Um, and like we registered with the Health Professional Council, but we registered under occupational therapy, which is
Yes.
an interesting one because yes, there is, physicality to our movement and we can encourage, the body kind of cognitive integration. However, we have such a strong backing psychologically with undergrad and postgraduate master's level psychology that we would be better aligned under psychology, you see.
Okay,
So there's
yes.
just little things like that that need to just be tweaked, and we're slowly getting there. There's an amazing organization called Sonata, which really kind of advocates for all the art therapies in South Africa, and there are huge movers and shakers in there and getting us places where we need to go. Um, Another thing is with regards to medical aid. I mean, in
Yes.
this country, um, most of the medical aids will dedicate savings plans to us, but we don't have access to prescribed minimum benefits, which is quite a story, and we really
Mm.
hope to get there because, as I said, like traditional therapy isn't for everyone, and because of the kind of cultures and things that we have in this country, it needs to be more accessible. There's so much help that is needed.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
and so yeah, so I suppose I just see it as becoming more established and more accessible. And yeah, I just think it is the way of the future. Traditional therapy is becoming a little bit outdated.
Mm.
And no offense to that, I mean, I've been in therapy my whole life and I always will be. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's a much more exciting, interesting approach, I think,
Yes,
to therapy.
definitely is. And hopefully with podcasts like thee and you still being in your yes era, you'll get the word out more there and hope you become established sooner rather than later.
I hope so. I
Well,
really hope so.
Victoria, thank you so, so much for your time today. This was a really interesting chat, and I hope our listeners do get encouraged, even if it's just one, to look into movement therapy and see how it can benefit them or even their patients for anyone who's in home care. But I really do appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great chat.
Oh, I love it. And to all our listeners out there, we'll see you on the next episode of Healthy Talks. And remember to like and subscribe.